Here's today's Money Metals Minute from MoneyMetals.com. The big news out of Wall Street, of course, this week, the S&P 500 and Dow each broke new record highs. But if you measure it in terms of gold, the general market may already be in a bear. The Dow Jones actually peaked last December when measured in gold. That's when the Dow to gold ratio, I should say, hit a high of 17-1. It's since slid sharply. So let's bring in Stephen Gleason, president of Money Metals Exchange. Gold and silver seem to be getting more investor attention lately. A lot of people are apprehensive, though, about how to go about it. What would you say to people who are thinking about it?
Well, the first thing is doing a little research. You should always do that with any kind of purchase. You should know who you're dealing with. When it comes to precious metals dealers, the first thing I think, look them up on the BBB. See if there are complaints. See how they've handled those complaints. Everybody probably can have a complaint, but how they've dealt with those, how many they have, what kind of rating they have, that's one way of doing the research. There's another site called bullion.directory, which has reviewed hundreds of companies across the globe, and we were honored to have been named Precious Metals Dealer of the Year in the United States last year by that ratings group, international ratings group. So those are two things you can do to research, the BBB and bullion.directory, and that's literally the web address, bullion.directory. The other thing is size them up. Look at their website, look at content that they have. If they have an email list, get on their email list, and start small. If you're worried about, you're not 100% sure, well, buy a small amount and just see how it goes. See how good the communication is. See if they provide you with transparent pricing and fast delivery. Do they confirm that they got your payment? Was their invoice exactly what you expected? Was it packaged well? Was there pride put into the way they handled everything with their customer? And if you have a good experience, that's a really good sign. Obviously, it's not a guarantee, but you really need to pay attention to the people you're doing business with. And that's just as much, if not more, the case when it comes to precious metals.
Makes sense. Do your homework. Some other considerations, though, both before and after somebody actually acquires the physical gold and silver.
Well, I would say that there's a couple things that I would emphasize. One is, what are you going to do with it when you get it? Where are you going to put it? How are you going to store it? And most of our customers probably keep it somewhere in their house. A few will put it in their bank safe deposit box. Some will store it in a depository or in a Brinks facility. Some will put it in their home safe, but some will hide it, in other sort of unpredictable places. So if you have a lot of precious metals, and you probably want to have some of it stored remotely, just because that's a lot to have in your house. I do think that everybody should have the ability to get their hands on their gold and silver, at least some of it, very quickly, if they need to. So storage is one consideration. Some people are reluctant, and I can understand why, to store it in their bank safe deposit box. In fact, the banks are part of this war on cash and even war on precious metals. Some banks are saying you can't hold gold and silver or cash in your bank safe deposit box, so you may be banking with one of those banks. But there's also concerns from back in the 1930s. FDR issued an executive order banning private gold ownership in America. That some people felt like the gold that they had in their safe deposit box was being disclosed and potentially seized. That never actually happened, but most people turned it in voluntarily, or many people did. But there's less privacy, perhaps, if you hold it in the bank. And so I think people rightly are a little reluctant to do that. The other thing is, in addition to figuring out how you're going to store it and where you're going to put it, is really to think about the responsibility that you have as a precious metals owner, or just as a person, to keep your financial business to yourself. A trusted person or a spouse, certainly you should be aware of what's going to happen if something happens to you, but you shouldn't be talking about how you bought all this gold and silver, bringing out your collection and showing it to everybody that comes and visits. There's been, unfortunately, some really horrific situations where people have not kept their mouth shut, have been, talking way too much about what they owned and found themselves with a home invasion or a robbery. And so, that's the other thing. So figure out how you're going to store it, and also discipline yourself to keep your financial business as private as possible.
Thanks. That was Stephen Gleason at MoneyMetals.com. Live prices at MoneyMetals.com show gold currently trading at $1,335.55 per ounce. Silver comes in at $20.28